and he is immediately met in the backfield, runs through the contact, and then throws a shoulder for good measure.
This team this year. That is true. High in the air. Right center field. Brandon Compton. Welcome to 2025. Not today. This one the other way. It's still going back. That's the drag. Walks up and down. Edwards pulls off and buries a play. Richardson drives out for Robbie Ryan. Her three right on the money. Takes his shot for Darby. Flag out. Doesn't matter. Touchdown.
There we are. What is up, my wonderful peeps? Happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. Yes, starting on Tuesday. I wanted to say happy Tuesday, but happy Wednesday here on Pitchfork Lunch. Yes, I am Michael Caratino at Diablo00 on X, the artist formerly known as the Twitter. You guys know that. You can follow me there. Check the show out. Also, don't forget, you can go to my wonderful IG, which is at michael.caratinito.5. Yes, the show is up and live running there. So you can go check it out there. Yes, on the good old IG. Like I said, at michael.caratinito.5. Don't be bashful. And guys, the YouTube channel. I know I pumped it so much last year, but don't be bashful. Subscribe to the wonderful YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, watch live. First of all, watch live, but subscribe to the channel. Do you want to know why you should subscribe to the channel? Why you should subscribe? Because you have missed a plethora of phenomenal interviews and converviews, as we call them, as I have called them, coined them last year, being a concrete grad, because it's interviewing a coach and a player, but they're conversations. And you missed an amazing one yesterday with Associate Athletic Director, Media Relations, Doug Tamro, who again had the privilege of him helping me obviously working with him and all that he's done and staff has done everything. But we got to talk to Doug. Absolutely awesome. So if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you can always go back and watch. You can go back and watch. You can subscribe to it and go back and watch the shows. If you missed season 1, season 2, there's people that have been on multiple times, so it'll add to the story. But you can binge watch again. Hopefully, those of you that I forgot to give you props yesterday. For those that did, if you binge watch, towards the middle of season 2 on, when I kept telling everybody, go through season 1, whatever you missed, watch, then binge watch, then get through catch up on season 2, whatever you missed, and then you're ready for season 3 when we rolled it out yesterday. Absolutely awesome. So again, go to YouTube. So you can go and, like I said, subscribe to it, binge watch, get all caught up, and you'll be happy. And you'll, the conversations we had, like we're going to have with Doug Tamro yesterday. So again, so yeah, subscribe to the YouTube, get caught up. You definitely won't want to have missed anything. But again, if you're watching now, you'll see it. But if you got to run away and get it, you can. You can go back and watch much later, but not too late. Don't wait too long. Don't be bashful. Don't wait too long. Yeah. So again, so stoked for it. Go to the YouTube. It's at Emmons and Michael B's and Victory Season Champ 005 at MVC 005 on YouTube, and subscribe away, my friends, because it is so worth it. And again, like I said, we're going to catch up with Coach Coop in just a few minutes. Again, the AJ Cooper, linebackers coach, done a phenomenal job. Played, obviously, high school ball here locally at Sunny Slope High School. Then went on to Glendale Community College and played for my wonderful, good friend, but coach that I've got to work with as a broadcast partner. Coach Kirsting, played for him at Glendale Community College. Went on to North Dakota State, and just kept growing. I mean, and you talk about a phenomenal tight end. People are like, oh, he's coaching linebackers. Yeah, he gets the physicality, and as a coach, again, as a player, you evolve. As a coach, you evolve. But we are going to sit down and have. It's going to be the awesome sit down. And again, can't disguise it because you'll notice the background. We're at Camp T and Camp Tonazona, which again was phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, just in this linebacking core, guys, I've talked about it. Going to talk about it more. well, I mean, I talked about last spring, but I mean, through fall camp, through the fall, I mean, Jordan Crook, Keyshawn Elliott, you look at Cyrus Fiasau, and then Martell Hughes back from last year. Tate Romney is back. I mean, some newcomers like Tristan Bacon, a local kid in there. But again, we'll get to more of the linebackers. But you look at, I mean, again, a guy like, Keyshawn Elliott and Cyrus Fiasau, who, are transfers and transferred in last season. And again, Coach Coop has just done such a phenomenal job with the linebackers. And I mean, working with Coach Ward, knowing what they want to do out of a defense, what they need out of their linebackers. Guys, I talked about this all last season. Not all last season, but again, you get it. I mean, especially with defense, I know, yes, I'm going to get geeked out. So that being said, but yeah, this linebacker looking so deep. And again, on Friday, which is just 2 wonderful days away, the day before game day eve, as we say. On Friday, yes, I will give you season predictions, the season prediction for this team, what I think it can do. Again, I know I didn't go crazy about the number 11 preseason ranking yesterday, but those of you that watch and those of you that know is that I could have cared less about preseason rankings. I think preseason rankings are, look, it's great. And I get when, CB, when you see, number, 5 taking on number 2 taking on number 5, or number 1 taking on number 11 or whatever. Like, it's just, I get it, but it's at the point where I guess, when you need it to more so, I guess, keep growing the sport and sell it, but people are watching. So look, we can evolve and ruin conferences and ruin regional rivalries. We can evolve and just not have preseason ranking. The first real rankings shouldn't, if you want to do a preseason ranking, that's fine, but be like, outside of that, these do nothing. The first real rankings come out the first week of October. Then, again, most teams will have played their 3 non-conference games, and then they'll be into their they probably have played their first conference game as well. So, to me, that's what a rank should be. But again, am I stoked for the Sun Devils? Yes. Do I, from the standpoint of the football team is a number 11 ranking, but from the standpoint of that, what they did last year, and then you get these clowns and jokers everywhere and saying, ASU, ASU, it was a cute story, this and that, yada, yada, yada. But the number 11 ranking, I mean, they see it. Again, do I think they could have been a little higher? Yes. Do I think some of the preseason rankings, again, if I were to be that, fanatic that just got crazy mad and annoyed all the time with preseason rankings, and it's like going hard and this and that, blah, blah, blah. There was one on Fox Sports, and it had ASU, complimentary of them, but down at like 23 behind some schools. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And yes, have I been around it more? Do I see what ASU's added? Do I see what they've returned? Yes. Do I see little pieces that they filled in and added? Absolutely. More so than I see some other. But if you're going to base it off of what they did last year and what they went, usually preseason ranks are what they have returning, and now it's like, okay, we'll push the goalpost back to, can they do it again? That's that. So inevitably, yes, I'm excited. Yes, I'm excited, but from what it says at 11, but inevitably, like I said, I don't care, because last year they were picked to finish last and weren't ranked, and it took them long enough to get in the top 25, because once these teams, if teams are there and they're winning, again, it's to be about objectively breaking it down and seeing it. Okay, this is how they play. This is what they've done, and then the excuse, this conference, this and that. Either way, we'll get into that later. But the Devils, preseason number 11 from the AP, absolutely, again, solid. But Saturday night, when it starts against NAU or the Harvard the Pines, as many know them, we'll see from that. So, volleyball. Hey, women's volleyball, by the way, I know I mentioned it. Oh, but yeah, to wrap up, yeah, women's volleyball. I know I mentioned it. They play Northern Iowa, and this is a team. I mean, you talk about quite a few transfers that have came in. Tatum Parrott. I know I mentioned her because she's a local kid. She played at Greenway High School. She also was at Grand Canyon and transferred over. Transferred from Grand Canyon, obviously, to ASU to come play for obviously for ASU, but for Coach Van Neal. And we'll get into that too. I'll get into that a little bit later. But I mean, you think of somebody like Tatum Parrott or a Sydney Henry, who's a setter who transferred from University of Missouri, Kansas City. Zoe Burgess, middle blocker, just transferred from Kansas. And then the two players from Oregon, Noemi Glover and Colby Neal. And you recognize that name, Colby Neal, huh? Like, why? Wow, Colby Neal was a chance team last year. No, that is a younger sister, Jillian Neal, who's on the team. I talked to Jillian. I got to talk to her briefly on the court after the scrimmage, the maroon and gold scrimmage. And she thank her for being on the show last year. We're talking about she had so much fun. And so we're going to aim, and we're going to do it, but I'm going to aim, their schedule pending, but getting both Jillian and Colby on the show. Getting them both, getting them on the show at the same time because, Jillian's obviously a vet, but the little sibling funness will be great. But yeah, Colby Neal from Oregon, along with Noemi Glover, and then also Faith Frame, a libero, transferred from Cincinnati, another Big 12 foe. Obviously, Kansas was too for Zoe Burgess, and then Bailey Miller transferred here last year, but she transferred from West Virginia, and then. So she transferred the year before from West Virginia, the first year of the Big 12. And so it's obvious. Again, it's absolutely awesome. And then also we got to transfer Ella Lamagora, the junior. I went to Corona del Sol, but was at Long Beach State, and now back here. Bryn Colville, the transfer from Texas A&M, but that was the year before. She's back as well. So, again, this team is headed to Northern Iowa. They take them on Friday. I'm guessing they are leaving this afternoon or this evening, I'm guessing maybe. Or maybe even tomorrow morning. Probably tomorrow morning because they're going from Iowa and then over to Pennsylvania, like you said, to take on Penn State and Penn in the next as they again get their season rolling. So yes, but hey, we're gonna take a break. Got to take a break. When we get back, though, we are going to be talking to. You're gonna see the sit down that I had with again Sun Devils linebackers coach AJ Cooper, again a Glendale Community College alum, as doing the show outside on remote and after football practice. So yes, you can hear the sirens in the background, and they're stoked that I'm going to be talking to AJ Cooper. That's why they came by, gave it a little extra noise. How can you not be stoked to talk to Coach Cooper? Hear my conversation with Coach Cooper. So we'll step aside. When we get back, though, much more coming up here on Pitchfork Lunch. But like I said, we'll hear from Coach Coop and go from there. But again, you're not going to want to miss the conversation. All right, back here on Pitchfork Lunch, and look at this, up at Camp T, hanging with Coach Coop again, another year of it, and man, well, okay, let's start with dodgeball. Dodgeball just wrapped up, and you and I, we kidded around last year how the kids in us will always come out, the elementary school kids in us will always come out, competitive, fun, but like, oh, it bounced, I'm not out, this and that, who's out? But just the thought of the fun of playing that, but just the ultimate competition, and guys, it seemed like this year teams, not that you guys didn't have strategies last year, but the strategies seem to like really pump up this year.
Yeah, I think what you see is that's really Coach Dillingham and the culture he wants to create within the program about people having fun competing. You know what I mean? And what better way to do it? I mean, who doesn't like dodgeball, right? Like who doesn't like dodgeball? And then you get a bunch of elite athletes running around, juices are flowing. We had a little shorter practice, so they get a little bounce in their step. And you know, as coaches, like we were kind of talking about, you think you're a little younger than you are. You know what I mean? Your mind's telling you your body to do one thing it probably can't do anymore. So no, it's a fun time. And again, it's one of the things Coach Dilly does a really good job of is creating competition, but making sure the players are enjoying and having fun with it.
Well, absolutely. And speaking of having fun, your linebackers. I know last year we talked, and like you said to me, I mean, and I had asked you, I mean, people around knew that, you know, you had guys coming in, you had talent, and your message last year, which I got to say that Pitchfork Lunch fans loved, is that, you know, getting comfortable being uncomfortable and how you made them right away. But man, I mean, last year and I know I talked to you about it. It was last season, but the first score of the season, who did it come from? The defense and the linebacker.
Yeah,
so,
I did.
but you know, they answered that question that, you know, many from the outside, of course, had, saying, oh, we see the D-line, we see the secondary, but what are these linebackers going to do? When you look at, obviously, where you went to last season, and my only question on last season, but their growth, and I know we talked about it throughout the season, but just how they grew as a unit, how they helped the defense overall, your group grow as a unit. I mean, just obviously, I know you're excited, but just what did you see? What made that possible from that group?
Well, I'll say first credit goes to Caleb McCullough. You know, the guy that had been here for his whole career, you know, went through a lot of adversity, coaching changes, you know, the transfer portal, deciding to stay. And I think he really set the tone. You had a guy like that wanted to compete and sharpen his sword and be the best version of what he could be, but at the same time embrace guys coming in from outside the program and make them feel home, make them feel welcome, support those guys when they made plays. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really believe that's one of the biggest catalysts right away. When you have a senior like that, I've always believed this, when you have a senior at a position group that has his best year, it's going to give the group and then hopefully that side of the ball and that side of the team an opportunity to have a good year. And Caleb was a piece of last year, but within that position group, I would give Caleb a lot of credit with the tone he set. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And he wasn't always the most vocal guy. But man, you talk about a guy that was accountable, led by his actions. You know what I mean? Worked his butt off. I mean, the development he had. Me and Coach Joe Conley, we talk about it all the time because Joe was here when he was a freshman, and just seeing what he had developed into. Obviously, me getting to coach him for 2 years, and just seeing how much he matured and just really giving himself an opportunity, you know. So the credit goes to Caleb. And then I think the other guys, you know, you had Zyrus, you had Crook, you had Key, you had Martell as a freshman. The guys that came into the program that were new, just buying into that, you know what I mean, and embracing that. And obviously that starts with believing in what Coach Dillingham and Coach Ward, you know, that message and that structure and that culture that they want. But those guys bought into that. And then obviously, you know, it all siphons down believing in what the Werewolves do and who we are and what we're about, right? So, big credit goes to Caleb. Those guys just bought into it. They were extremely unselfish, you know what I mean? And I think that allowed our group to continue to grow. They knew there was competition every day, whether they had a good day or a bad day, if that makes sense. But it takes, I think, a unique set of individuals to embrace the competition, but be happier for each other when the success does occur. And that's what, man, that we'd watch the sideline and stuff and, hey, watch how fired up this guy's getting for you and watch your teammates mobbing you here and watch, like, and that's fun. That's exciting. And that's one of the things even now, well, you know, everybody's watching scheme, right? How hard can you get them to play and how passionate can they be about it? Does that make sense?
And when you said sideline last year, I remember talking to you after Cincinnati made a tough game, but when Cam boated that linebacker, I had a lot of fans after you were like, I played your sound from practice, message in and say, did you see? Because like they found you, and like just a reaction from you, and like you said, but I mean, Caleb getting that for the linebackers, everybody bought in. But let's talk about that. I mean, obviously now guys came in, now they're returners. It's a very experienced group, and the one thing, I mean, I've talked to Martell, I've talked to Keyshawn. Talk to Jordan, and it's like, yeah, I mean, they're out there. You have them in, you know, certain pairs, but no matter, it's seemingly whoever you like switch up, who's out there. And I get that's the point as a coach when people say to me, "Well, thanks, Captain Obvious," but they don't skip a beat. The chemistry isn't just with, you know, the guy that they've been working with. I mean, yeah, you got to credit that to practice. But what does it say about them? Because and like you said to me last year, they're not taking a step back. No matter who's out there,
Sure.
they're going to be, like you said, given that effort. But they have their guy, but then, like, mixing up the different pairs, they're all shining.
I mean, again, that starts with Coach Dillingham. Is the standard. You know what I mean? The standards within the program, it doesn't change. It doesn't matter who it is. Does that make sense? And that's day one. That's being on time, being 5 minutes on time. Like, everybody is held to the same standard. And he just allows us to take that, and it goes within the defense and within the position group. And the guys understand that. And that's what is nice about having a bunch of returning guys, is they've seen a lot of, like, younger guys don't understand how the standard can correlate to game day, right? And those small margins for wins or losses that can occur with it. So just having older guys, but trust me, as a coach, I think years like this are your hardest, because it can be very easy as a coach to relax and say, oh, he's got it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And for me personally, I just draw back on my experience. I've had, let's just call it 4 or 5 years of my career coming off an elite year, a championship year. Does that make sense? This is actually the 6th time doing it, right? So it's a lot of, like, okay, going back to learning from the mistakes I made, how I handle players, how I approach players, how I challenge players. Does that make sense? And so you got to have that balance. You want to challenge those guys and push those guys. You better know what buttons to push and how to push them. And then within that, like, making sure they withhold the standard. And I'm really lucky. Like, our best players are bought in. They allow me to coach them the hardest. And that raises the floor on everybody else in the room.
And you mentioned Martell, because last year, I know, and you talked about me each week, again, young guy coming in, but you could see him growing. I mean, the big, the special teams play last year where he blocked the punt and Montana goes in and scores. But from his growth, what have you seen from him? And just, I mean, how much better of, again, I say better, not that he was bad, but just a defender of a teammate, of a player. And what have you seen in his growth? Because, man, he just looks, and you guys always use that word, comfort. You always say you got to understand the why when it becomes, again, they're learning the playbook, they're thinking, you don't want them to overthink, but, man, it does seem very reactionary to him.
Especially at the linebacker position. It's so much getting lined up, getting your eyes right, and then understanding what your key is telling you to do and how to react to it. And there's a comfort level in repetition through that. And then in repetition and making plays, you know what I mean? Making plays always gives you confidence. And I was just talking to his mom, like, he's just, as a person, as he should be, he's matured. You know what I mean? Like, he's confident in himself. He speaks louder. I can hear him now starting to work on becoming a leader. I think he's got within the team and in the position group some really good examples from a leadership standpoint. And so you're starting to see those pieces really come into place. And, the rest is the length, the athleticism. Yeah, that's easy. You love that stuff, right? But no, it's been really cool to watch him mature and develop. And then that's where I'm able to start to coach him, because the things he needs are different than when he was a true freshman. Right. And you can coach them differently, you talk to them differently. But again, it all goes back to they understand the standards. You know what I mean? With the young guys right now, we're pushing to get them. This is the standard. And we're not going to bend on the standard. Does that make sense? And some young guys figure that out earlier than others. You know what I mean? That's okay. That's why it says coach on our shirt,
And then so the younger guys, the newer guys that came into your position, who are they? What can the Pitchfork fans understand? Because, again, I see some guys make plays. And it's like, again, when you say, like, oh, they'll flash, but then they start to get it. And like you said, it doesn't hurt to have the leaders that they have. But who are these young guys?
So we got Isaiah, Puka, and Bacon, all freshmen. Isaiah's coming from Hawaii, Lilani, Puka's coming from San Clemente in Southern California, and then Tristan Bacon's coming from West Phoenix. Keller's over West Phoenix. So both three, we're really excited about the future. You know what I mean? We're working on building that foundation now, just as far as teaching them how to line up and then really how to just play hard. Does that make sense? And again, one thing I probably hammered this home to those guys more than anything is watch the older guys, listen to the older guys, ask the older guys questions, because everybody in college football, and that's what I've kind of figured out. I think one of the keys to coaching is figured out, what's a guy's why, and then kind of what presses his buttons, what's his personality, what gets his fire going, you know what I'm saying? And I think all three of those guys can maybe see pieces of themselves in Keyshawn's and Crooks and Zyrus and Tate and Crew and Martell, guys that can help and mentor those guys. So really just getting those guys to open up and communicate and ask questions, not just to me, but those guys. And there's a reason why I've always tried to structure position rooms like I do, that the older guys have ownership and they have to lead the group. Does that make sense? It's coach fed, player led, as a lot of people say. Right. And I think that's really, really important, because if I can establish in the elders, that will continue to trickle down, just like I would say some of the standards that you would see in our room, Trey Brown brought to us. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
And kind of
Yes.
started, at least with the new staff
Yes.
at Washington State. And there was a lot of great players and great linebackers at Arizona State going back a long, long time. And again, I'm just speaking recently, but Trey kind of helped establish with our new staff the culture and what we're going to do in that position room. So, yeah, I'm excited for those 3 young kids. We got a lot of work to do, you know what I mean? But you're starting to see, like Isaiah flashed here today.
Yeah.
You saw him, whoa, you know, and now you're talking about a 6'1", 225-pound kid that's running and hitting folks, and that's exciting to see. And it's exciting when camp's tough. Like, I don't realize if the average fan understands how hard a fall camp is on an 18-year-old. You know what I mean? I don't care if you early enroll or not.
Right.
Like, things are moving so fast on these guys. The amount of defense we have in, the expectations that we have from an execution and effort standpoint, and then you add technique into it. And man, you're a freshman linebacker. Our defense is predicated on our linebackers making a lot of adjustments, just kind of like our back end. You know what I mean? The pressure is going to go somewhere, right? And so for freshman linebacker, I was talking to Puka's dad. I was texting with his dad last night. I'm like, man, his head's spinning right now, but that's okay. You know what I mean? If it was easy, like, then we wouldn't be doing our job. Does that make sense? Right. And I've always found it's better for a player's career and their development. Make it hard first, because they will catch on. They'll figure out how to play hard. They'll figure out why they're supposed to line in the A gap. They'll figure out why we're playing cover 3 or we're blitzing or whatever we're doing. Does that make sense? But make it hard early. Then as I can back away is not the right word, but then as they grow, mature, they have confidence. Then it's them doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I mean, like you said to me last year, and even like Coach Force, I know Coach Dillingham said, but like defensively, you're saying, sometimes, you know, we might not make the right call, but like if you're going 100%, or even if, you know, you get the call and they make the wrong play, but going 100%, sometimes you just play your way into making the play, even though you made a mistake.
You must have been in my meeting.
Well, you said it to me last.
No, that was the message today with the young kids, especially leading up to the scrimmage. You know, and they didn't realize it. We took some of the calls back. We made some things like mentally easier, and then you see some guys start to flash. You know what I mean? And now the next step with young guys, and that Isaiah starting to get into that step, is doing it consistently. Consistently, day after day. Coach Ward says it all the time: be consistently good, not occasionally great. And I think that is probably a lot of times the next step for players is to go, okay, I made a play. How do I enjoy it, embrace it, have fun with it? And then we got to go to the next play and do it again. And do it again and do it again over and over and over. And so that's always that's the coaching, and that's kind of where we're at with some of those young guys. You know,
and talking about Coach Ward, I know we talked about it last year. Obviously, you guys experienced together at Washington State, but you know, Coach Dillingham, big, obviously, continuity of the staff, especially when you're building something, you're talking about the culture. But, you know, Coach Ward, you're coaching with them. You're that, you know, that other arm, that voice. Because like you said, and again, in football, it's one of those things. You've been together long enough for somebody, you can kind of, you know, just look over. Players are looking over, like they don't have to say anything. It's like, okay, yeah, this is what you need to do. But, I mean, that continuity, you working with Coach Ward. I know last year I asked you about recruiting, but just, I mean, with the players on the field, with obviously the guys that come back, when you work with somebody like Coach Ward and you guys have that relationship, how much better does that make, you know, the defense, just the culture, everything, when you guys have been a part of it?
I think for me, like any coordinator I've worked for, to me, it was explained early in my career, and really big credit to a lot of my mentors in coaching. It's like, your job as an assistant is to really assist the coordinator. Obviously, it's the coach position. I'm talking about as a coach within coaching.
Right.
It's to assist the coordinator in making that side of the ball the best version of whatever the coordinator wants to be and whatever his vision is. And yes, we're all going to have opinions, and Coach Ward's great on listening to everybody on the staff, and then he's got to make a decision on what direction we're going to go with certain things. But I've always had that in my mindset, regardless of who I work for, is I'm going to try to do my best to be the best version of myself to help that coordinator be successful. Does that make sense? Like, never been about me. And so I just really think it helps when, you know, Coach Ward and I've worked together when we're both assistant coaches at North Dakota State, when he was a coordinator both at Wazoo and here. And when you just know somebody, you know, like kind of him and I talked about, we can have bad days around each other. You know what I mean? Like, there's not we don't get in our feelings about, hey, I say I'm having a bad day and I say something sharp, or vice versa. Does that make sense? Like, we're both grown men that respect each other's opinions and what we have to say. And I think we both do a good job of processing what we say to each other and really thinking about where we're coming from. Because I do think that's the job of an assistant, is to give perspective too. You know, if you've got 4 or 5 assistants on one side of the ball all saying the same thing, is there another version or way you should be doing it or seeing it? You know what I mean? So I think that's a healthy, as long as it's healthy conversation, which it is. And obviously I got a ton of respect for Coach Ward. his ability, person who he is as a person and a man, and the way he coaches those guys and the way he really runs his staff. And he's been a huge help for me just in development for me as a coach. You know what I mean? He does a great job of holding me aside and kind of giving me life lessons that hopefully can carry over whenever I get that, hopefully get that opportunity to coordinate. So, no, he's been awesome. Our relationship's really, really good. And that's how I look at it. It's just like, hey, what's his vision? What does he want? And then how can I help him make that happen? Does that make sense? So,
Yep. And okay, help him make it happen. Let's get to this. Obviously, people talked about it's been a pretty like a lot of the return players coming back, a lot of returners on defense. And,
Mhm.
and I mean, Coach Ward talked about it the other day, saying, yeah, it's a good thing, but like you said, kind of sometimes it's not about being relaxed. It's like how you grow it, how you
Mhm.
keep,
Mhm.
pushing it forward. But I mean, the excitement, like obviously what you guys have front D line. I know the preseason awards, like I said to you last year, preseason rankings awards, like
Mhm.
it's great to be on a list. It means you've done something, but at the same time, like, or go earn it,
Right.
earn it, keep earning it. But I mean, what you guys have coming back at the D line, Coach Dyron's done there, and then
Mhm.
obviously in the secondary, I mean, Coach Carrington, Coach Ward working with that. Just when you see this defense, I mean, again, like you said, you got to be focused. But I got to think, even as a coach, like as fans, it's kind of hard not to get excited.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you always, as a coach, hey, you got returning players. That's good. You know what I mean? That you like that. You know what I mean? But I think you got to look at, okay, where the strain is going to be, okay, now we go out to mentally and physically challenge returning players. You cannot allow them or yourself to find a comfort zone, if that makes sense. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And the biggest challenge is, listen, let's just focus on tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to talk about week 8 or this big game or that big game. Like, now we got a scrimmage tomorrow. Let's focus on watching the film today and getting better at that and not looking too far ahead, and trusting the process with that. In the process, whether it's nutritionally for these guys, whether it's taking care of their bodies, whether it's watching film or lifting, whatever it is focusing on the process. So again, it's great. Yeah, as a coach, you want returning players, but you got to be able to, like, that's a cup of tea, and you better make sure it doesn't have the poison in it, where you get nice and comfortable. And I got these returning guys, and they'll do this and that, because assuming is one of the worst things you can do. Assuming. We know as coaches and they know as players. I've made that mistake coming off a really good year one time. I assumed that players knew. I assumed they knew the standard. They knew the standard, but there is a process to replicating a standard.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about what happens on a scoreboard replicating a standard.
Yep.
There's a process to that, and you have to pay for the price for that process. If you don't pay the price, nothing else is really going to matter. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah, to answer your question, awesome. Love to have returning guys. Love it, like I mentioned, for the leadership standpoint, because you're really getting to see some young guys get to see, like I'll use an example like Ben Alafeo or Chris Johnson or Tony Nakuba get to watch Boogie and Xavion and Rouser, you know what I mean? Get to watch some really good veteran players. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like that, and that's just at a different position, and my 3 young guys, and Isaiah and Puka and Tristan, get to watch Zyrus and Key and Crook and Tate. Does that make sense? So I love that. But I guess it's just a different type of pressure that needs to be applied.
Yep.
And to me, that's the art of coaching, because also comfort creeps in. And it's like, well, I know this guy. He knows me. Why is he saying this? Or why is he saying that? He knows it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, you really have to work in years like this. Everybody involved, coaches and players, you got to take your feelings out of it, and you got to listen to what's being said.
Right. Because, and you bring that up because you had said to me last year, and even, Coach Ward had mentioned it, that like, with returns, whether you had, like, again, obviously a bad season, but, a good season, but when the younger guys seeing you coach, not that you give them any special treatment, but like the same way, like they do something and you're hard on them. Not that you just constantly like berate and yell, but like the way you're coaching, the way if you're talking, the young guys see, oh, well, if he's coaching, this guy who did all this last year like that, and he's in his face, like, okay, I'm gonna get on board. So yeah, I mean, everybody's I'm with you. It's got to see it.
Oh, I challenged Key and Crook yesterday. You know what I mean? And not disrespect them. That's what people like. My voice is going to raise, but I don't disrespect kids. I'm going to challenge them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And in the moment, because I tell guys all the time, I would much rather you be strained, you be challenged, you make a mistake, right, in practice, because it's way worse on Saturday afternoon or Saturday night. It's way worse. The feeling afterwards of making that mistake, right? And it's just like raising kids. You got to catch it in the moment. You got to address it in the moment. You know what I mean? It's no different than parenting your kids. So these guys are just 18 and 22. So.
Yep. How fun was that too? And again, I asked some of the guys, obviously not say what they wrote, but when they went back up and opened their letters, and how cool was that?
Yeah. It's kind of, some guys share it, some guys don't. You know what I mean? It's kind of, I think that's a really good idea. I'm going to take that with me wherever the journey leads me, man, because I think it's just cool for guys to see, like, this is what my goals, my aspirations were. Now, where am I at with that? Now, I think it's always I think you always got to follow that back with young people. It's like, just maybe you're not where you want to be right now. Does that mean you failed? Okay. If it goes back to it, look at your process. What have you done in that year of time with these goals that you set to make those goals a reality? You know what I mean? And really try to break it down, because I think let's just say this generations of kids is very, because of social media and everything being right in front of them, used to like, hey, success right now. Right. Like it's got to happen right now, because they see in their minds, because of social media, success show up right away. Right. And they don't see the hard work, the effort, the commitment, the sweat, the tears that go into it. Right. So I think it's just reminding those guys, like, dude, you haven't failed. You know what I mean? If you haven't achieved those, but maybe you need to look at your process, what you're doing, and how you're doing it, right? And that kind of touching on like one of the words that Coach Amy presented on. You got to look at yourself. You know what I mean? Who are you? Who are you? What are you doing? Like, and if you really want to achieve something, are your actions matching, you know, your goals? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it's like, in this day and age, social media is right, because and Coach Ward, when I had him on the show one time, he gave me a great line. Coach, he goes, yeah, Michael, it'll take me 20 years to be an overnight success, because again, like you're saying, the social media aspect of things, people think it's like, you see things, but these people, they put in the work. They didn't just like show up and be like, all of a sudden it's, it's this. But at the same time, so for this, like the scrimmage at Camp T, and then as you head into week one, what's the for the fans, like the fun part, but the most challenging part about this like last little bit of camp? I mean, outside of, yes, everybody always hears, teams and coaches and players say you're just tired of hitting the same people, like running up across. But what's that like that last little challenging part to obviously the team's dialed in, but not to get them like too amped up for game one, because like we talked about before, that adrenaline, but like just this last little stretch now up into week one against NAU.
I think obviously following along with the process, and I think everybody's got to be really in tune to Coach Dillingham's vision and what he wants every day. Does that make sense? Like I think that is super, super important, because it might be a high day. Today was a low day, short practice, hour 15, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, but what are we getting done? What are we trying to achieve as a staff? Does that make sense? And stay focused on that, and not start to look down and go, okay, hey, we're 10 days out from game day. We're 8 days, we're 7 days. What I mean? Like, no. We got to worry about this and this today. This is what we're installing today. This is our emphasis today. Does that make sense? I think it too is, as depth charts kind of start to sort out, it's really, especially in this new era, you need everybody. Does that make sense? You don't know what's going to happen during the season. Not that you can go pick up guys in the past, right? But like the roster, everybody's got a smaller roster now. Does that make sense? So it's really getting everyone to understand that, hey, some guys are going to have to be really unselfish for the betterment of the team. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And whether it's going through scout team reps and giving looks, whether it's backing up at another position, whatever it is that the coaches are asking. Like, so it's some of those conversations start to happen. You know what I mean? And I think the best way, those aren't easy, and the best way you got to go about it is being honest with the kids. You look them in the eye, you give them the positive feedback they're doing, you give them the things you feel like you need to improve on. I think you got to be careful, like, because comparison can be the thief of joy. Right. So players, they see themselves, and listen, really competitive guys are going to see that they're the best at what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like you'd rather have that than a guy that just thinks he sucks, right?
Exactly.
So, but you've also got to get those guys to understand, hey, I see this player being better at this skill set or this skill set. And I think the art right now is going to be able to find how many guys can we keep engaged and moving forward, even if they're not the guy, and make sure that they have a role that they can really latch onto and value. You know what I mean? Because you never know when their opportunity and time's going to come. We don't know, but there's going to be somebody on our team, right, that in a big moment is going to make a big play that the fans would never guess, right? And probably even some of the people on the coaching staff would never guess. And that goes back to our responsibility as coaches to make sure that you communicate and you keep those guys, in the fight, as they say.
Right. And I want to wrap on this, because you just brought up a great point, and I thought about that. And been asking, because the whole thing, obviously, with the number like down to 105, and not really having walk-ons, and I mean, yes, they're not telling you how to use your scholarship. So I'm guessing if teams or a place wanted to have like walk-on tryouts, you technically still could. But why do you just feel about, okay, so it's saying you can't, but like going down to 105, because again, you're out there recruiting and people are recruiting, but again, playing junior college ball, again, some are just different bloomers, but not that, and I mean, your story, but like not like taking away the walk-on aspect and just having 105. How, I mean, I mean, is it frustrating as a staff, as a coaching staff? I mean, obviously you see for some of the kids, because I get every single walk-on isn't, there have been walk-ons that have obviously had great careers. Sure. Some made it to the NFL. I know it's not every single one, but just taking like that part away of it, is it kind of like, were you guys frustrated as a staff?
I mean, they don't ask us our opinion. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? So it's kind of like, okay, this is what we're doing. A long time ago, Craig always used to tell us all the time, hey, you're either green and grown or you're ripe and dying. Like, listen, adversity is going to come up. Things you like in life are going to come up, especially when you don't really get a say in those things. But you got to figure out how to work with what you got. Does that make sense? And I here's what I'll say about that. I've been really proud that every school I've been at, walk-ons have earned scholarships for me. Really, really proud. And not just earned scholarships, but I mean, shoot, at Wyoming, Garrett Crawl was a 3-year starter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he got a shot in mini camp with the Dolphins. He's doing great. It's cool. He's doing, I think he works for Hendricks Racing now. He's crushing it there. Shout out to G, man.
Nice.
And I had Josiah Hall. I had a couple up there that were really good. At Wazoo, we had Quinn Roth, who was interning with our straight staff. Quinn Roth was a really good player for Wazoo. He was second on the team in sacks one year. He was a walk-on. So I'll say this. I always took a lot of pride in coaching everybody the same. And I always took a lot of pride. I really had to hammer home with walk-ons and parents that I'm going to coach your son the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not giving your son this opportunity to walk on with our program because he's going to be a practice dummy and he's just going to stand there and get hit by
Exactly.
stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we are recruiting your son because we believe that he can compete and ultimately help this team at this level. You know what I mean? And, Prayer is a great example of that. You know what I mean? And his development. And I think, he keeps having, doing some things camp-wise. I think you're going to see Prayer in some capacity on the field, So I would just say this. I always took that approach that we're going to coach everybody. We're going to coach everybody. We're going to raise the standards. We're going to make sure those guys, that they feel like they're getting coached, like they feel they're part of the team, they're feeling loved. Coach Dilly was always great with that too. Does that make sense? So that's my take. Like I said, they don't really ask our opinions about it. We just got to figure out how to move differently with a smaller roster, and how can we keep moving forward as a football team, because it doesn't do any good to sit back and complain, hey, this is how we used to do it. And hey, listen, that I can tell you this, everybody out there, that's how as a coach you get passed by and the game passes by real quick.
100%.
When things come up, if you don't adjust to them, the game will be by you so quickly. So I guess that's my take on it. I miss it. I correlate it to, like, I played JUCO ball in Arizona, and like when they take the JUCOs away, like, dang, that stinks. That you know what I mean? But hey, we got to figure out. We got to have a new plan. Coach Dillingham's put a great vision in place on how we're going to handle it moving forward, and we got to, as I say, fight it, forget it, and drive on.
Absolutely. Yep. Coach Kirsting always and like I always teach
too.
Like I always tease Coach Ford, because he was like, Phoenix Hall, but he didn't, he coached.
We got it right when he came over.
Well,
he is. He won a natty there.
Exactly.
I didn't win a natty there as a player. He won a natty there. So we accepted him from PC. You know what I mean? Shout out to all the PC fans out there, but they know Glendale was running, GCC was running Arizona Junior College football. Like there was no doubt about that.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like, those who know. You know what I mean?
Like I said, Coach Kirsting got mad at me when I started calling the Sun Bowl the Glendale Invitational. He's like, you repeat that to my players. I'm not letting you near them.
Oh, he wouldn't. Trust me. You talk about a guy that would not. He's one of the guy that in a moment, like, I didn't understand. But now as a coach, I appreciate, and I text him this, I appreciate him so much more now that I'm older and understanding the message. Like, I look back and think about a junior college coach and the short amount of time that they have with players to try to get those guys to the next level, try to get them to do what they need to do academically, try to mentor those guys with very, very limited resources. You know what I mean? Like him and Coach Bell and the rest of that staff at the time, man, I appreciate those guys so much, because, listen, I was hard-headed dude. You know what I mean? I was hard-headed, and some of the lessons he was trying to teach me in the moment I didn't understand. And it's made me a better coach now to understand how to approach guys that maybe have that same, you know what I mean? They have a lot of pride, they have a lot of intensity, and it's sometimes that'll blind them, right? Yeah. And so I really appreciate Coach Kirsting, because the older I've gotten, the more of the lessons that he taught me, I've really understood as a coach, if that makes sense.
And I think I said to you last year, even with like broadcast, like working with him in broadcast, like how he sees the game, but just, when he talked to other coaches and even his former players, like the way, like you said, the way that when they come up and they talk to him, and like you said, I mean, obviously to overstate the obvious at a 2-year school slot, but to build that bond and like those guys go on. But anytime there's been some kind of when they honored the team, I mean, just the amount that came back. Yes, quite a few were still living locally, but whoever came back, I mean, it was just,
it was a unique bond. It was especially for a school that was in the city. It's not like we
Yeah.
were at some of the other
True.
schools that were in dorms or in small towns where you had no choice but to bond together. You know, you didn't have to hang out with your teammates on, you know, in the off season, or you didn't have to do this or that. And so that was a really, those 2 years really started to help define me as a person, because there was a lot of adversity. JUCO's not easy. I'm just telling you, as a player, like that's hard. It's really, really hard. It's going to tell you. You see if you really love football or not.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you really love it, and again, with the limited resources, you kind of have to do it on your own, with coaches trying to help you along the way. But there's 100 and who knows, 20, 30. I mean, that roster fluctuates so much.
Right.
So it's a tough road to hoe, man. That's why when we get JUCO guys here, I kind of gravitate towards them, try to help them, because one of the things as a JUCO player, you naturally have a wall up because you feel like you have to do it on your own.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? And getting those guys to understand is, hey, now you have a strength staff, you have a nutrition staff, you have academics, you have coaching, you have people in our building that have a full-time job just in a specific part of your life to help you be successful. Like, let your guard down and let those people help.
Exactly.
You. It's no longer you have to do this whole thing on your own. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that, like, junior college coaches support and do a great job across the country with their players. But they also understand what I'm saying. A lot of times JUCO guys, they kind of got to, once they can let down their guard, you know what I mean? Where even transfers a little bit different, because transfers have been in usually the Division I or the FCS model.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where there's more resources, more people, you know, just coaching every day on life, right? Those JUCO guys, man, that's why it's cool. Like Elijah spoke last night. To see Elijah speak to the team and kind of, you know, I understand what he's saying. I've been there, you know what I mean? And so it's cool to see those guys really grow and mature.
Yep.
I think those guys can really, really help you. You know, I mean, look at Max and look at Kyle Scott, and you know what I mean. Like we've been, I think as a staff, Coach Dillingham and staff have done a good job pinpointing those guys.
Yep.
You know what I mean, and they bring, and those guys. The flip side is those guys bring an edge too.
Yep.
Those guys are hungry. Like when I was eating off the dollar menu at McDonald's and eating, you know, cooking ramen noodles and buying, remember the big box of hamburgers as cheap as you can, and like doing everything you can to eat, man. Like. That can be very humbling, but
the chicken that is up the next day, that's like $5. Got that.
It makes you hungry. And I'll never forget when I was at North Dakota State, and they gave us our meal plans, and they're like, you get 15 meals a week, and you know, this is over a 7-day period, and guys were complaining, and I'm like, we get free meals? 15? I was like, okay, if you're not going to use yours, give me like, I'm like, this is awesome. Like you're paying for my food, you know, I can go sit in a dining center and eat whatever I want, take a box to go. So it's just like life, and it's like raising your kids. It gives you a different perspective.
Yep. And like I said to you last year, I mean, look, I'm glad throughout the other parts of the country that, you know, they are still having JUCO football. Maricopa, again, it's not to bash, like I said to you, but
and I don't know.
No, you weren't. I'm saying me, because Coach Kirsten, we've been a part of, like, I was on like I told, doing the radio show he was always on. And again, it's not just bashing them, but it's like, come out and say, because again, you're saying opportunities, and not even just moving on playing sports. The first in their families to ever go to college. And Coach was like, he goes, you know, you're even more proud of the ones that, maybe they didn't go on and play football, but they went on their first in their family to get a college degree. You know, so it's I know, you know,
I used to, you know, where I used to see it a lot when I started coaching, started recruiting both at North Dakota State and Wyoming, and I'd come back to the Valley, and how many head coaches, or more importantly, you saw it in the coaching staffs, how many assistant coaches were guys like you just said, maybe they didn't go play in the NFL, but they left Arizona after playing JUCO ball, and they went to a Division III school in the Midwest, or they went somewhere, got their degree, and then they came back and teaching. They came back to the communities to teach. That's what I really remember coming back. And it didn't matter what side of the Valley you would go to practices, or, you know, go watch guys lift, and you run into JUCO guys that played at Scottsdale or Phoenix, or down at Eastern and Western, or, you know what I mean, and Pima, and obviously Glendale, and, you know what I mean, just all those places. And you saw Mesa, and you saw the development, you know, and then cool to see guys coming back into the community and giving back. That was the impact that I thought it had. And, you know, again, my personal deal is, listen, I was a late developer. I had the best high school quarterback in state history. No disrespect to anybody else, but Mike Nixon was a freaking dog. Like, he was. If Mike played in this age, I was just,
oh wow,
Mike was different, you know. And listen, there's been a lot of great quarterbacks after him. That's not taking a shot at anybody else, but I'm biased, man. Mike was different, and but I still needed to develop more. You know what I mean? I needed more time playing
more
football, more reps. I needed more adversity. You know what I mean? And I had one offer, but like, I'll never forget it. I called Coach Kirsten. I was like, I had one Division I offer, and I went on a visit. I'm not going to bash the school, but I'm not going to tell you where. But I went on a visit, and it wasn't the right fit for me. And I remember calling Coach Kirsten. I think he dropped the phone. He's like, really? And I told him, I was like, Coach, I'm not going to go there. I want to come to Glendale. because I do remember this about Coach Kersing. Like, and it's reminded me as a recruiter. I remember he walked in. I was at Sunny Slope High School in my library. He walked in. Coach Hickman introduced me to him, and he shook my hand. He goes, "Son, I think you're a hell of a player, and I really believe, you know what I mean. Whether you come to Glen or not, I think you're going to be a hell of a player." And it just and it wasn't like people that know recruiting, coaches will say anything.
Oh, and if you know Coach, it wasn't a line. I know what you're going to say.
It was really genuine.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He's a very serious guy, and it was really genuine. And I remember it just struck me. I was like, and I knew about, Glendale was just coming off a national title, and I wanted to be somewhere that won. But I'm thankful every day that system was around when I was coming out, because that gave me an opportunity, and you look at your decisions and things that happen in life. I wouldn't be here without opportunity.
Absolutely. That's a mic drop. That is Coach Crew. That's why he's a great linebacker. I mean, he was a tight end. He used to like to beat up on linebackers for his career. But then he figured he beat up on them so much, he could help linebackers absorb tight ends. And I'm sure now the tight end community is very upset with you.
I will say it was probably 50-50 in the run game. But the backers that I played with, especially the safeties in college, they know they couldn't cover me.
Exactly.
I remind our guys about that. No, I'm just playing.
I could run some guys for you, because I cover those. That was my early covering JUCO. But when I started covering, I was like, man, and Coach said, he's like, look at my tight end. I go, as long as your fullback gets that one reception a game for beating everybody up and blocking. Coach is like, he goes, I get him the ball. He goes, maybe once per half. And I was like, whoa, two in a game for the fullback. But he is Coach Cooper, linebackers coach, assistant coach, and again, a gaucho at heart. So and again, we always gotta tease Coach Ward, because he started at the wrong side, but he says he's a bear and a gaucho. But he won a natty.
He won a natty
as a gaucho. Yep,
he won a natty. A lot of us, man. I was 18-4 in 2 years. Couldn't beat snow and Dixie. So
I know. He said, I mean, it's Dixie and snow is
still have nightmares about that.
Believe me, covering him, I got annoyed because the radio guy would always come and have his chest pumped and everything. But hey, we're gonna get out of here. More Pitchfork Lunch coming up. Again, get on out this season. This man, you'll see him on the sidelines. The best natural reactions ever from Coach Cooper.
My bad. There we go. Now the microphone's on. No, but how awesome was that? Seriously, Coach Cooper. Man, and again, we went a little long, but it was just flowing. And yeah, like you got me thinking about something. So some of my questions, I was like, oh, but I mean, talking about obviously, the coaching staff, the continuity, what it means, and his linebackers, and that was the best because you saw that in last year. Well, and if you didn't see it in last Camp T's interview, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's at Evans and Michael V is in Victory Season Champ 005 at MVC 005 on YouTube, and subscribe away as you can go check that interview out from last season and from Camp T, see what he said. And then, you'll get it. But again, just making the linebackers comfortable being uncomfortable, and did it right away. And man, it's just, like guys that transferred in, like the Keyshawn Elliott's, like the Cyrus Fiasals that transferred in. Crew Jackson, he's also back from, last year, because I mentioned guys back from last year, which would obviously be Keyshawn and Cyrus, Jordan, Tate, Crew Jackson, back from last year as well. So, I mean, but just that as a unit, Caleb McCullough, I mean, was such a big thing. And he, Caleb McCullough, and he was talked about, quite a bit last year. But, just a kid that stuck with the program, was there before, goes through, 3-9, back-to-back 3-9 seasons, a cloud, being over. And then for him to make that contribution, and Coach Cooper talking about it right there, my friend. So just, again, absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. So, but hey, we're going to wrap today on volleyball. I just want to remind you that, yes, Friday they play at Northern Iowa. Yep, they are at Northern Iowa, and that'll be on ESPN Plus, 4:00 local time. Just in case you were wondering, you can check it out. And then Sunday, the 31st, they take on Penn State in the State Farm Volleyball Showcase is what they're in, with Penn State and Pitt. They take on Penn State and Pitt. And they will be opening up at Desert Financial Arena next week from Friday as they take on Florida Gulf Coast. By the way, Penn State, number 2 in the country, preseason coming in, and Pitt, number 3. And obviously national champions from last year. So, yeah, like Coach Van Neal, they played at Nebraska last year in the Cornhusker Invitational. And he had made that happen, and now made this happen. Talked about it when it broke. Absolutely awesome. So forks up to this team again, who's got some new players, guys. There's some there's some new faces. I talked about the transfers that have come in, but and obviously there's a few freshmen too. They got another Mila Ribeiro, who is a libero, who is from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And I learned an interesting fact. They actually, when they went to Brazil last May, not this past May, but the May before, they went to Brazil, which Roberto Rebelo, is obviously from Brazil. And so, like, they went to Brazil, though, played a lot of volleyball. They had actually played against Mila's team. So that in and of itself, very cool. And she ends up, and, all you got to do is talk to Coach Van Neal and, see what he's doing, obviously see what he's done. And, yes, obviously athletes, competitors, kids want to win, but see what he's done. And obviously having a Brazilian that was already on the team, that did not hurt. So that is very, very cool. So nonetheless, though, we are going to get out of here. I'm going to get out of here. So, again, so stoked you guys watched. Again, at Diablo00 on X, artist known as Twitter. Hit me up there. Thoughts, any thoughts you might have, something if you don't think I, might be covering it, or something that you want to know more of, hit me up. hit me up at Diablo00 on X, on Twitter. My IG, as you know, Michael.Caratanudo.5 is the wonderful IG. And yes, the YouTube guys channel. So watch live, but subscribe. It's at M as in Michael, V as in Victory, C as in Champ 005 at MVC005 on YouTube, and subscribe. Also, again, don't forget, I am still efforting on finding out, but the Casual Sports Radio Network. Again, you can see all the goods at KSRN.com. It's www.ksrnaz.com. So you can go there live and check it out. You can check it out. But again, we're working on, there's some construction, I guess you could say right now. That's a good way to being in Arizona. Everybody will understand that. So, but yes, going to get out of here. I'll see you tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel. And yes, thanks to reigning Big 12 champs, women's volleyball. It is #OurState, definitely for all of you down south. And as you guys know, go Devils. And as always, forks up.
I went to Arizona State. Right. I'm a Sun Devil, man.
The 27-yard line. That's a great call. Blake Baker, Plummer will put it up, throws over the middle. Pull, touchdown. Quick flag. 3rd down and 5. Levitt swings it to Scadaboo. Scadaboo breaks defenders. Here he goes again.
Scadaboo is the running back, and he is immediately met in the backfield, runs through the contact, and then throws a shoulder for good measure.
We're going to chuck this defense here. That is true. High in the air. Right center field. Brandon Compton. Welcome to 2025.
Edwards pulls off and buries it. Richardson drives out for Robbie Ryan. Hurt 3 right on the money.